Despite receiving harsh criticism for the perceived drop in quality from the 1978 film, Halloween 2 would go on to become a box office success in its own right and was a modest hit with fans. And since then, reception has only grown kinder, with 2 oftentimes being hailed as the best sequel to the original and marginally better than its slasher contemporaries. Unfortunately for John Carpenter and Deborah Hill, Yablans, Akkad, and De Laurentiis would once again come knocking, though this time the pair's involvement would be contingent on one thing: no more Michael Myers. Yes, as mentioned in the last chapter, both Michael and Dr. Loomis died in that explosion. Carpenter said as much when asked by the Twilight Zone magazine for their November 1982 article, stating flatly, "The Shape is dead. Donald Pleasant's character is dead too, unfortunately." This is actually reflected in the ending of Halloween 2 itself, when Officer Graham tells Hunt they found 10 bodies so far inside the hospital. Garrett, Bud, Karen, Dr. Mixter, Janet, Mrs. Alves, Jill, the Marshal, Loomis, and Michael. These are the only 10 bodies inside the hospital. Jimmy doesn't die, as we know from the TV cut. The producer, if her death is still canon, died elsewhere along the highway, and Alice was killed inside her own home across town. So when development was moving forward on the third film, a whole new story was concocted, this time by Nigel Neal, creator of the Quatermass character and series, though ultimately the story would end up much different through rewrites, first from Carpenter himself, then by Tommy Lee Wallace, though all but Wallace would go uncredited. And so, Halloween 3, Season of the Witch, was released in 1983, written and directed by Tommy Lee Wallace. Now, given that Season of the Witch takes place in its own continuity, I won't be giving a full recap like I typically do, where I unfold the plot how the filmmakers intended. I'm blazing through this one. The movie opens with an older fella named Harry Grimbridge being chased down by a crew of assassin androids, created and controlled by the Silver Shamrock Novelty Company, a California-based mask-making company. Harry narrowly escapes them while carrying one of Silver Shamrock's masks, but he's later assassinated while in the hospital. The doctor assigned to his case, Dr. Chalice, takes a unique interest in Harry, who is raving about impending doom, and teams with the man's daughter to go to Santa Mira, the town Silver Shamrock operates out of. While there, they uncover a horrible plan to murder millions of children across the United States. By harnessing the ancient ritualistic properties of Stonehenge, the company's president, an immortal warlock known by the name Connell Cochran, has infused every mask the company sells with a small receiver that, upon hearing a specific frequency over a commercial, will kill the wearer in awful, unimaginable ways. Chalice tries his best to stop this plan from going through, getting 2 of the 3 local stations to pull the commercial from air, but the film ends with him still struggling to have the final one pulled.
Stop it! Stop it! Stop it! Stop it! Stop it! Stop it!
Even if he were to succeed, the commercial will no doubt play elsewhere, so no matter how you interpret the ending to occur, millions died that night. As mentioned at the top of this chapter, Halloween 3 was the first, and so far only, entry to not feature the Shape as an antagonist, a decision that would leave the franchise dead in the water for half a decade. The goal after Halloween 2 was to transition the franchise into an anthology series, with every film being a new story with its own sequel opportunities. So why are we covering it in this episode? Well, unlike with other anthology series like Twilight Zone, Night Gallery, or Creepshow, this particular anthology series would have had a thematic through line. Obviously, the tradition of Halloween. And since Halloween is a real-world holiday with established mythology and history tied to it, it means that there would be an inherent starting point that any future filmmakers would be able to pull from when writing their take on the holiday. This is a very specific type of anthology you don't see often. This is a wildly niche reference, but it reminds me of the Fabula Nova Crystallis Final Fantasy series, which includes Final Fantasy XIII, Type 0, and Versus 13, which later became Final Fantasy 15. TLDR, a general world myth and god pantheon were designed, which would then be interpreted differently by different creative teams and explored through these 3 separate game series. Halloween 3 may not exist in the same universe as any of the other Halloween films. In fact, the original 1978 film is fictional in the universe of Halloween 3, but it still shares a mythology, the Festival of Samhain, Halloween itself. Not only does Cochran claim to be present for the ancient Celtic festivals of Samhain, making him thousands of years old, but he states the last great festival was 3,000 years ago, roughly around the same time as Enda's massacre and execution. Now, I'm not implying he's referencing Enda himself, obviously, but I am implying that the same general backstory for Halloween is the same general backstory for Halloween 3. When discussing the development of the original Halloween, each person involved seemed to have their own view of what story they were telling. Irwin Yablans saw it as a gritty story of a babysitter murderer. Carpenter saw it as a slow burn story of a man who isn't really a man, but a force of nature. Deborah Hill, personally, saw it as a take on the classic idea of what Samhain is, exploring the potential horrors that occur when the barriers between worlds are weakest. This is also how Cochran describes Samhain to Dr. Chalice near the end of the film. Essentially, these first 3 films make up the horror equivalent to the Fabula Nova Crystallis. They interpret a pre-designed mythology in 2 different ways. All of this to say that, given the significant overlap between the overly Celtic themes of the novelization and the first 2 film sequels, as well as the sheer amount of influence the novelization had on the first 5 films overall, I'm going to take this barriers between realms are weakest on Halloween mechanic pretty literally going forward as we look at the Thorn trilogy, as well as the wholesale existence of magic outright. Season of the Witch took a chance that wouldn't pay off, forcing the hands of everyone involved to coordinate the convoluted return of the previous 2 films' masked antagonist, Michael Myers. And I do mean everyone. As Dustin McNeil notes in Taking Shape, even though Carpenter and Hill were never interested in continuing the Halloween movies, they were still contractually obligated to, so when it came time for a 4th entry, both agreed the Shape would need to resurrect once more. And so, Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers, was released in 1988, directed by Dwight H. Little from a screenplay by Alan B. McElroy. The film opens on October 30th, 1988, a decade after the Haddonfield killings took place, just as the barriers between the world of the living and the dead are approaching their weakest. A team of 4 arrive in a Smith's Grove transport ambulance to Richmond Federal Sanitarium, where they're entrusted with the transfer of one Michael Myers. As we learn, he did not die in the fires of Haddonfield Memorial Hospital. He's merely fallen into a coma. Loomis didn't die either, having only received some scars and a limp. Here, Michael overhears one of the doctors mention he has a niece back in Haddonfield, which enrages him, and he begins slaughtering everyone inside. Now is as good a time as any to mention Michael's look here. Despite a decade of having gone by, his face is still bandaged and bloody, showing how fucked up he got during those first 2 films. For all we know, he doesn't even have a face anymore. We never see under the mask in this film. Back in Haddonfield, his 7-year-old niece, Jamie Lloyd, has visions of the Smith's Grove ambulance before she's tucked into bed by her adoptive sister, Rachel. As we're told, her mom and dad, Laurie Strode and an unnamed man who is not Jimmy, as we later see, both died in a car crash not long before the events of the film, 11 months ago to be specific. That night, Jamie has a nightmare where she's attacked by a man in a white mask, who we know to be Michael. The following day, on Halloween, Rachel is forced to cancel her date with her prospective boyfriend, Brady, in order to babysit Jamie. Elsewhere in the town of Ridgemont, Loomis confronts the sanitarium administrator for allowing Michael's transfer when the pair receive a call from the police. Michael's transport is overturned en route to Smith's Grove. Loomis sets out immediately, eventually stopping to refuel. Unfortunately, Michael found the station first, killing everyone inside and stealing a pair of coveralls before waiting for Loomis to arrive. He drives off with the station's tow truck, totaling Loomis's car in the process and forcing him to walk, where he's picked up by a sloshed priest. The pair exchange remarks about evil and damnation, and for a brief moment, Loomis has a friend. In Haddonfield, Jamie is tormented by some really mean kids who taunt her for having a dead mom and a serial killer for an uncle, and this for some reason makes Jamie want to go trick-or-treating, which forces a last-minute costume shopping trip, where Michael retrieves a new mask as well and jump scares her. Interestingly, before Michael actually gets close to Jamie, she sees a vision of a young Michael on the night he killed his sister, presumably because she herself picked out a clown costume. She's seeing things she shouldn't even know about. Loomis arrives in town before looking for Brackett, only to learn he's retired and moved to Florida, replaced by Sheriff Ben Meeker. Meeker is all too familiar with the events of a decade ago and takes Loomis on his word, just like Deputy Hunt before him. As we established with Michael Scribbling sister and Samhain in the first 2 movies, Michael is compelled to kill his family members on Halloween, which Loomis makes clear to Meeker, stating plainly that Jamie is his ultimate goal. While trick-or-treating, Rachel discovers Brady hooking up with Meeker's daughter, and Rachel and Jamie get separated. At a local bar, we learn the cops are issuing curfew warnings, and when the owners try to call into the police station to complain, the phone just rings. Sensing something is wrong, he corrals a bunch of other drunks and they drive out in a convoy. Michael knocks out the town's power by throwing a man into the electrical grid and kills the police force, though the pacing of the movie makes it seem like he does this immediately after Loomis leaves with Meeker. The pair find Jamie and take her back to Meeker's home, but Michael hitches a ride inside a cop's car and sneaks into the house almost immediately, as you can see here, which is really fucking creepy. Meeker gets a call out for backup from the state police, but Loomis heads out to look for Michael, believing him to still be searching for Jamie.
Maybe nobody knows how to stop him, but I've got to try.
Meeker also leaves after he learns the drunken mob has accidentally shot and killed a local they mistook for Michael. In the Meeker home, Michael first kills the deputy assigned to watch the kids, then he pins Kelly to the wall using the deputy's shotgun. Next, he takes out Brady, who is an absolute moron who never once put some distance between himself and Michael, despite having a fucking shotgun. Rachel and Jamie manage to escape the fortified Meeker home by crawling onto the roof, but Rachel is knocked off, forcing Jamie to run off alone, where she's scooped up by Loomis, who takes her to the nearby elementary school, which triggers its alarm and alerts the nearby mob as well as Rachel. Unfortunately, Michael is already in the school. Somehow. Michael goes Super Saiyan in order to match Loomis's power level so he can toss him through a door, then he powers down and goes after Jamie, but she's saved by Rachel and the drunk mob, who drive off to safety. And again, showing off how he can just be anywhere at any time, Michael somehow sneaks onto or underneath the pickup truck, even though it's never left unattended. They literally leave the school to go to the truck, and Michael still somehow sneaks past all of them and gets underneath. Anyways, he quickly kills the drunks and nearly gets Rachel, but she manages to run him down, sending him flying out into some old, dilapidated ruins. The cops show up right after, somehow knowing Michael was here and not in Haddonfield, and blast Michael's ass down into the old well shaft, which collapses, burying him under a ton of rubble, presumably killing him. As everything winds down, a masked assailant stabs Rachel's mother. Loomis and Meeker discover, to their horror, that the assailant is none other than Jamie, who had seemingly snapped after her long ordeal of visions and her brushes with death. She stands atop the staircase, a pair of bloody scissors in hand, while Loomis sobs in despair. Cut to credits. Right off the bat, we're retconning Halloween 2's ending completely. Despite witnessing our boy burning for like a minute and a half, we're told he survived and was put into a coma. At first, it's a hard pill to swallow, but when looking at the shooting script for Halloween 4, they originally did have an explanation. As scripted, the film opens on a blank hospital wall, when out of nowhere, the wall explodes outward towards the camera, revealing a room completely on fire. From this explosion, we'd see Dr. Loomis get flung out into a hallway, burnt and badly injured. We'd cut back to inside the burning room to see Michael Myers standing, fully alight. He takes a few steps and collapses, but only a moment later, police rush in with fire extinguishers. Despite Loomis's weak pleas, they put out the burning body of Michael Myers. Then we cut to the Halloween decor montage. So it was worked out that Loomis wouldn't be stuck in the burning room, and that Michael would have been put out pretty quickly. Why was it never filmed? Likely budget reasons, but given that Loomis has only moderate burns as compared to Michael, but does have a noticeable limp and needs a cane to get around, we can assume that portion of the story is still intact. Same goes for Michael not looking black and crispy like Ben Tramer. But that's not all. We're also seeing Michael's skill set getting buffed. He is everywhere, and not in a way that feels planned out. In the original film, and even in the second film, you can actually trace his movements. Here, it's like he's moving all over town in an instant. He sneaks into Jamie's house when she leaves to snoop through her pictures, then immediately heads out to the police station where he kills all the cops, hence the line just ringing, but immediately after that, he's at the town's power grid with that Halloween shit. Then he just happens to be right where Rachel was when she was picked up by Loomis and Meeker. Then he just happens to know to get into that one deputy's car and wait. He later somehow slips into the school other than through the front door, sneaking up on Loomis from behind, then slips under the drunken mob's truck despite everyone being in front of it. Either he's sprinting between scenes or he's teleporting. Factor in the nightmares/visions Jamie has of her uncle, and it makes him seem almost like a ghost, which is fitting since Halloween 4's original script did in fact feature Michael Myers as a ghost. As for whether his strength and endurance have increased, it's hard to say. In the original film, he was clearly supernatural, but it was almost like he was using his power sparingly. In Halloween 2, he's still very hands-off for the majority of the film, though once he's set his sights on Laurie, he amps up the strength, busting through glass doors and tanking 2 bullets to the head, and even surviving a massive explosion and burning. But here's the thing. John Carpenter had Nick Castle move and walk like a man in the original, and in the sequel, Dick Warlock walks like a robot in a weirdly slow way. But have you ever noticed how Michael sitting up in the original film feels more like a Warlock movement than a Castle movement? Or what about the way he stands up behind Laurie then shambles forward? Or when he's completely still looking at Loomis? Sure, attribute the slowness to him having been stabbed in the gut and eye right beforehand. For me, if we're going off this very Halloween mythology-centric take on Michael and his surroundings, I think it's fitting to remember that this is when the barrier between the living and the dead is the weakest, and that both Loomis and Cochran discuss rituals and their power over men. If we were to take both Michael surviving untold amounts of fatal damage and Cochran being a warlock who can harness ancient ritualistic technology as being possible in this Halloween multiverse, then I'm positing that Michael is kept alive on this Festival of the Dead by way of this weakened barrier, even when Michael should be dead many times over.